Hey guys, Victoria here, and welcome to the Geeky Sandbox. Back with more Daredevil, and this is going to be episode 7, Art for Art's Sake. And this is a polarizing episode for a lot of reasons, and we'll talk about that here soon. If you don't want any spoilers, please feel free to go ahead and skip this one. I will catch you up in the next one whenever you guys go ahead and watch. But for now, we're going to be very spoilery and talking about the episode in full, theories, and Easter eggs. So if that interests you or if you're all caught up, please stick around. Starting off at the top of this episode, Fisk is reeling. He's in his office and he's got Buck there, and mainly they're talking about what's next. Fisk has gotten word about another victim, and he's more importantly heard that Daredevil was on the scene. Matt was in a really weird place of trying to turn things around and not get into this very addicted place of being Daredevil where it consumes his life, and almost like there's an arrogance that he started developing with Daredevil, right? And so that's why he stayed away from it. He was letting the police do their thing, especially after everything that happened with Foggy. But now it's like he's almost overcorrecting, being there, being quick, being prompt, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Buck and Fisk have a moment alone, and Buck can see that Fisk is spiraling quickly, and it sucks because Buck does come from a really good place, which I was very surprised he was saying, but we're not going to use the resources to go after Daredevil, right? We're going to focus on you being in office. We're going to focus on your term and all the other things you said you wanted to do, because maybe Daredevil helping the city could be a good thing. And Fisk looked at this man like he was crazy. Fisk is not here for that at all. And he also reminds Buck, that's not why I hired you and why I rescued you from your old life. We do have a whole side plot going on where Vanessa meets Luca. And it's kind of one of those things where after everything that happened in the previous episode, or at least episode 5 with the bank robbery and Luca and all of that, and Luca's just trying to convince Vanessa, like, we don't really have to fall in line here. Like what's going on? I know that things were better when you were in charge. I prefer when you're in charge. I know you prefer when you're in charge. And Vanessa keeps it very coy and cool and calm. We've heard her express to Fisk, and we've seen it in her face, that she did prefer how things were being ran whenever it was just her when Fisk was out of the picture. Not because she hated Fisk or anything like that. Like, it's very apparent that that love is still there, but there's a lot of like regret and remorse. And also I think there's a little fear because, again, she still doesn't know what he's done with Adam, but she suspects. And so she stays loyal to Fisk in front of Luca, and she's just like, kind of goes along with what he's implying. He's saying, like, are you going to help me with this, or am I going to have to worry about you? In terms of like getting Fisk out of the way, like, what can we do to get you back in charge? And just kind of to wrap that story thread up, Luca and Vanessa do have communications with each other at the end. She tells him where Fisk is going to be. Luca goes into this restaurant where Fisk is eating along, thinking he's going to shoot Fisk in the back of the head. And then out comes Buck with a silencer and shoots him quickly. And this is what Fisk was talking about. What am I paying you for? Let's get him out of here. And while you're at it, ask Vanessa, does she want to go pasta? Buy one, bring one home. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Buck at the end of this episode, but I just thought it was pretty badass. It was clean, but it also kind of made me feel like, I don't know if there's a little bit of remorse that goes through Buck's head when he does do what he does for Fisk, because it seems like, yes, he came along with Fisk for the ride, but maybe this isn't entirely what he imagined, especially because Fisk positioned himself as someone that was trying to make the city better in a new light with new resources versus trying to abuse his power. So things with Murdoch are a little weird, especially when it comes to Murdoch and McDuffie. So Kristen is trying her best to keep the firm running, and she has plenty of cases and questions that she wants to talk to Matt about, but also she just wants to talk to him because they are friends. So whenever she gets pushed out of the office several times, or gets shooed away, or gets put on hold by Cherry and Matt, she's like, something's going on, something's weird. But Matt and Cherry have a conversation. Cherry is very upset with him. He's like, pretty much saying, I'm trying to protect you from being this Daredevil that is obsessed with trying to do things right and perfectly. It is a thing that he struggled with, and it is a thing that drove a wedge initially between Foggy and Matt. It's a red flag, and Cherry sees it, and Cherry's like, not only will I not be a part of it, but I don't want to see you keep doing this. Like, it's not good for you. You are going to become obsessed. It is not healthy. You need to relax. And so Matt's pretty much like, if you're not going to help me, I need you to like get out of my way. It's crazy because it sucks to see a wedge slowly being driven between Cherry and Matt. It makes me scared for what's going to happen with Cherry whenever shows start doing that, like driving two kind of like familial kind of characters apart. Because I do look at Matt and Cherry as family, so that does make me worry just a little bit. With that, Kristen does question Cherry. She's like, what the hell is going on here? Now you're lying to me. I'm open and I'm honest and I'm transparent with you guys, and I don't feel like I'm being given that same respect. And I hope that that does sit with Cherry and it does sit with Matt. And I do understand that there's a certain degree of secrecy that they have to maintain because, one, I imagine they don't want Kristen to get involved or get hurt, but it might make things a little easier so she doesn't feel like she's being shut out just because she just is, you know. Outside of that, that's when Matt starts taking things into his own hands. So he ends up talking to Angela, who is awake in the hospital, and he's asking her all these very clarifying questions about what she remembers about the crime scene. What he's really doing is obviously like doing recon because he doesn't have that cop connection or insider into the police department connection with Cherry. Angela does say she remembers Daredevil being there and them fighting, and she remembers like the portraits and paintings, and so she tries to give Matt like some description of what she saw. So the task force that Fisk put together, he wants them to go in. Fisk wants to utilize those resources. I do feel like the task force and him are not on the same page fully because they think they're there to just figure out what this is and by any means necessary kill Muse. But there's a side plot of obviously Fisk wanting to find out if Daredevil was there and prevent him from having any sort of exposure or even any access to this case. Daredevil does make his way to the crime scene and he does do some feeling around on the portraits, and he does have to knock out one of the cops. He realized that these are several and many different iterations of Heather. And one thing that I thought was really cool is you do have earlier moments in the episode where Heather is extremely concerned. She sees the bruises on Matt's back when she goes to shower with him after his whole big fight with Muse. And so I do like that they have this sweet moment and everything. And like, you know, he touches her face, just take in her features and everything. And that's like really sweet. It just really amplifies the moment later in the episode when he realizes those portraits are of her. And as we've been waiting for this moment the entire series, Ashton Kutcher is the guy that we saw at the book signing that got his book signed by Heather when she was talking about therapy. And so while they're having this conversation in the office, Heather slowly realizes that Ashton Kutcher is Muse. Matt makes it there just a few minutes before them. This huge fight happens. It's a really good choreographed scene. And also there's a trigger warning for sliced wrists. Heather does get her wrists sliced open by Muse so that way he can try to use her blood to paint. He's able to take Muse out, but it's Heather who actually puts the bullets in Muse. You can tell she was shocked at her own actions. And while she's in the hospital, she just feels so much remorse for killing him, and she just can't believe this happened. But more importantly, she remembers somebody said her name. Whenever Muse died, Matt was trying to make sure she was okay. He was calling her by her name. He was devastated. But obviously when the task team arrived, they noted that she had been stabilized. Fisk was looking at this as, okay, how can I spin this to work where I shove Daredevil out of this picture because I need this to be about me and I don't want any sort of glory or fame going to vigilantes. And so when one of the officers on the task team is like, well, Daredevil might have been in here first, and Fisk was like, but he wasn't, right? Like, you guys killed Muse. And he slowly nodded his head, and I was like, that's the same reaction I would probably have. But it goes even deeper. Daniel asked BB to meet up with him. He does kind of lay into her for taking private information that he shared with her and putting it in a news article. She was like, well, you know how it is. And he's like, no, I don't actually. And that was really messed up. I'm not stupid. And I thought that that was like a nice moment for him to be able to explain that. But what I didn't like is what followed. He did threaten and blackmail. I don't say blackmail, that's being a little extreme, but he did threaten BB and said that she needed to say that Daredevil didn't kill Muse and save the doctor, that it was the task team. And so BB, I don't know where she's going to go with this. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But whenever Matt is in the hospital with Heather, both him and Heather hear Fisk claim that the task team killed Muse. I like that we're seeing this type of Fisk that's trying to like almost embezzle his power. Embezzle's not the right word, but you know, it's just like that same feeling of embezzlement. It's an interesting take just to kind of see Fisk have a little bit more bite to him. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But yes, let's talk Easter eggs really quick. Buck Cashman, he shares the same name as his comic book counterpart. He was an agent to the US government and he performed covert activities that are still unrevealed, and they're kind of like secretive in nature, and he had the highest level of security clearance. And he did work alongside Fisk just to kind of infiltrate and just do some of his dirty work. And this is very much a long shot theory. We'll start there. I think Buck might kind of split from Fisk because he felt very uncomfortable with, not with what he was doing per se, but like the fact that Fisk switched so quickly to, no, we got to use everything we've got to take down Daredevil. I think BB will run this first story, but I think ultimately she's going to do what she feels is right, especially because he threatened her. And so I hope, at least that's my hope, but for now I'm going to say it's a theory. I like what they started building with Bastion Cooper. I didn't think that they were going to be able to kill Muse this episode. I thought we were going to have at least another episode with him in it, but they took him out. Not only did he go out, but Heather also killed him. And so I know a lot of people were disappointed by that, especially because we were learning more about this version of Muse that they built. Because I know typically there's not a lot known about Muse regarding the comic books and things like that. Also, I think people didn't love the fact that this version of Muse had no powers. He specialized in Taekwondo instead. So he didn't have the ability to kind of dampen the senses around him, to fly under the radar whenever Matt was trying to look for him like he can in the comic books. That's not something that happened in the show, because obviously Muse does a lot of things with portraits and things like that. And so in the comic books, he's one of Daredevil's greatest foes. It's almost impossible for Daredevil to get a good sense of where he is because of all that Muse can do in the comic books. I understand for the sake of this chapter in the series why they kept things simple with Muse. And personally, I still think it worked, but I can understand why people aren't super happy with it. But yes, guys, if you like this video, go ahead and give me a like rating down below and let me know, what did you think of episode 7 of Daredevil Born Again? And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.